The snow fell relentlessly that January evening in Philadelphia, blanketing the city in white silence. Inside apartment 603 at the Venice Lofts in the Manayunk neighborhood, a young woman was about to meet a fate so violent, so brutal, that it would spark a 14-year battle for truth that continues to this day. Ellen Greenberg was 27 years old. She was a first-grade teacher beloved by her students. She was planning a wedding. She had her whole life ahead of her. But on January 26, 2011, something happened in that sixth-floor apartment that authorities would call suicide, despite 20 stab wounds scattered across her body, including 10 to the back of her head and neck. This is the story of a death that defies explanation, a ruling that defies logic, and a family's relentless fight against a system that seems determined to keep the truth buried. Are you ready for the darkest stories Britain has to offer? Introducing our new book, Unreal True Crime, British edition. 35 shocking true murder cases that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Available now on Amazon in paperback and Kindle, or grab your instant PDF download from our website. Links are in the description below. Don't miss out. Get your copy today. And now, let's continue with today's case. Ellen Ray Greenberg entered the world on June 23, 1983, in New York City, the cherished only child of Josh and Sandy Greenberg. Her childhood was filled with warmth, laughter, and the kind of unconditional love that builds unshakable confidence. When the family relocated to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania in the mid-90s, Ellen adapted seamlessly, her natural charisma drawing friends to her like moths to flame. At Penn State University, Ellen's vivacious personality found its perfect outlet. She worked as a lionizer, introducing athletes and their families to campus life, even assisting on the football field. Her smile was infectious. Her energy was boundless. Everyone who met Ellen remembered her. After earning her communications degree, Ellen made a pivotal decision. The career path to speech pathology didn't feel right, so she pivoted, attending Temple University at night to earn her teaching credentials. By 2011, she had found her calling as a first-grade teacher at Juniata Park Academy in Philadelphia. The children adored her. The parents praised her. Ellen had discovered her purpose. Then came Sam Goldberg. Samuel Hankin Goldberg grew up in Comfort in Pennsylvania, the son of Richard Goldberg, a successful businessman who owned a confidential document destruction company. By the time Sam met Ellen, he was working as a producer for NBC Sports, charming, charismatic, and well-connected in Philadelphia's tight-knit Jewish community. They met through mutual friends around 2007. The connection was immediate. Sam whisked Ellen away to South Carolina while he was covering the PGA Tour, and when she returned, they were official. To those around them, they seemed perfect together. After 3 years of dating, Sam proposed to Ellen on a California beach in June 2010. The wedding was set for August 13, 2011, at the historic Hotel Hershey. But beneath the glossy surface, cracks were beginning to show. Friends noticed changes in Ellen after the engagement. Her best friend, Allison Stern, observed that Ellen was spending less time with her own circle and more time with Sam's family. Ellen became secretive about wedding plans, which seemed odd for someone planning what should have been the happiest day of her life. Colleagues at school noticed Ellen rarely wore her engagement ring, explaining vaguely that it rolled on her finger. More troubling were the conversations Ellen began having with her family. In December 2010, just 1 month before her death, Ellen sent her parents a startling text message expressing that she wanted to leave her current situation. She told her father she was considering quitting her teaching job mid-year and moving back home to Harrisburg. For someone who loved her students and had worked so hard for her credentials, this was shocking. Ellen began seeing a psychiatrist for anxiety. She was prescribed medication. Yet, according to her psychiatrist's detailed notes, Ellen's face would light up whenever she talked about Sam or their upcoming wedding. There were no documented suicidal thoughts, no warnings of what was supposedly to come. January 26, 2011, dawned gray and ominous. A powerful nor'easter was bearing down on Philadelphia, promising heavy snow and dangerous conditions. Schools across the city made the decision to dismiss early. At approximately noon, Ellen Greenberg left Juniata Park Academy as the first snowflakes began to fall. She texted a friend expressing gratitude for the early dismissal. Just another teacher grateful for an unexpected break, looking forward to a cozy afternoon at home. At 1:26 p.m., surveillance footage captured Ellen stopping at a gas station on Umbria Street, not far from Venice Lofts. She filled her tank completely, spending $41.20 for nearly 13 gallons of unleaded gasoline. It was a practical decision. A full tank would prevent fuel lines from freezing during the massive storm. This was someone thinking about tomorrow, someone planning for the future. Ellen arrived home at her sixth-floor apartment sometime after 1:30 p.m. Inside, she went about ordinary domestic tasks. In the kitchen, she prepared fruit, slicing an orange, washing blueberries in a strainer. 2 clean kitchen knives sat in the sink. She opened her laptop to wedding planning websites, continuing the preparations for the August celebration that would never happen. According to building surveillance footage, Sam Goldberg left the apartment at 4:45 p.m., heading to the gym in their building. He swiped his key card at the gym entrance. This was routine. He often worked out in the building's fitness center. Nothing about this moment seemed unusual, but what happened next would become one of the most controversial 911 calls in Philadelphia history. At approximately 6 p.m., Sam returned to the sixth floor. He tried his key in the apartment door. It opened a few inches, then stopped. The swing bar latch, a simple hotel-style security lock, was engaged from inside. Ellen wasn't answering his calls. She wasn't responding to his knocking. Sam pulled out his phone and began texting Ellen. The messages grew increasingly frustrated, demanding she open the door, questioning what she was doing, expressing mounting anger that she had better have an excuse for locking him out. Security footage shows Sam alone in the hallway. He spoke with building doorman Phil Hanton, asking for help breaking down the door. Hanton, following building policy, declined but offered to call police. Sam refused. He would handle this himself. Using his shoulder, Sam forced the door open, dislodging the screws holding the swing bar latch. The door itself remained undamaged, only the lock mechanism broke free. Sam pushed inside. What he found would become the subject of 14 years of questions, investigations, lawsuits, and controversy. At 6:33 p.m., Sam Goldberg's frantic call came into Philadelphia's 911 dispatch center. The dispatcher's voice was calm and professional. Sam's was anything but. He told them he needed help immediately, that he had just walked into his apartment and found his fiancée on the floor with blood everywhere. The operator asked basic questions. What's the address? Is she breathing? Where's the blood coming from? Sam said he didn't know, that he was looking at her but couldn't see anything broken. He mentioned her face looked a little purple. Then came a detail that would haunt this case forever. The 911 operator, trying to understand the situation, asked if Ellen might have fallen. Sam suggested she may have slipped, that there was blood on the table. The operator instructed Sam to check if Ellen was breathing, to see if her chest was rising and falling. Sam said he couldn't see any movement. Following protocol, the dispatcher began giving instructions for CPR, telling Sam he might need to move Ellen's body. Then, more than 2 minutes into the call, Sam made a shocking discovery. He exclaimed that she had stabbed herself. The operator paused, asking him to repeat that. Sam clarified that she had fallen on a knife, that there was a knife sticking out of her heart. The operator asked if the knife was still in her chest. Sam confirmed it was, quickly adding that he hadn't removed it. The calm operator asked how far the knife had penetrated. Sam estimated it looked deep, maybe 3 or 4 inches, a long knife. The operator instructed him firmly not to touch anything. Emergency responders arrived at 6:36 p.m. They found Ellen Greenberg on the kitchen floor, her back propped against the lower cabinets near the range. She was fully dressed in a dark, zippered hoodie, gray sweatpants, and tan Ugg boots. A white towel was clutched in her left hand. Her right hand was closed in a loose fist. A pair of eyeglasses lay nearby on the floor, and protruding from her chest, buried 4 inches deep, was a 10-inch serrated kitchen knife. Ellen's body was cold. Her fingertips were blue. The blood around her had coagulated. The paramedics knew immediately they were looking at someone who had been dead for some time. They pronounced Ellen Greenberg deceased at 6:40 p.m. and stepped back to let the police take over. What the first officers on scene didn't realize was that they were looking at far more than 20 stab wounds to Ellen's body. 10 were to her chest and abdomen, but 10 more were to the back of her head and neck. Ellen also had at least 11 bruises in various stages of healing scattered across her body. Yet somehow, despite this evidence of extreme violence, the responding officers made a decision that would compromise the entire investigation. They determined Ellen's death was a suicide. No crime scene was preserved. No evidence was properly secured. The apartment wasn't treated as a potential homicide scene. Sam Goldberg, surrounded by friends and family members who had arrived quickly, was cooperative with initial questioning. He was never handcuffed, never separated from the scene, never treated as anything other than a grieving fiancé who had discovered his bride-to-be's tragic suicide. By the next morning, that initial assessment would be challenged. But by then, it would be too late. On the morning of January 27, 2011, Dr. Marlon Osborne conducted Ellen Greenberg's autopsy at the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office. What he documented would become the foundation of a legal battle that continues to this day. The wounds were extensive and disturbing. 20 stab wounds total, wound after wound to her chest, each one documented with clinical precision, multiple penetrations to her abdomen. Then the injuries that seemed impossible for a suicide. 10 stab wounds to the back of Ellen's neck and head. One particularly deep wound to the back of her neck had penetrated so deeply it had gone through her spinal cord. The bruises told another story. 11 contusions in different stages of healing, suggesting a pattern of injuries over time. Some were fresh. Others were days or weeks old. Dr. Osborne made his initial determination. Ellen Greenberg had been stabbed by another person. He classified the manner of death as homicide. For Ellen's parents, Josh and Sandy Greenberg, who had rushed to Philadelphia from Harrisburg, this ruling made tragic sense. Their daughter hadn't been suicidal, she had been murdered. The investigation would now focus on finding her killer. But then something highly unusual happened. Members of the Philadelphia Police Department contacted the medical examiner's office to dispute the homicide ruling. A meeting was hastily arranged that included Dr. Osborne, police detectives, and representatives from the district attorney's office. Both Dr. Osborne and his supervisor, medical examiner Sam Galino, would later testify that such a meeting was unprecedented in their experience. The police presented their case for suicide. The apartment door had been latched from the inside, they claimed, with Sam Goldberg locked out. A building security guard had reportedly been present when Sam broke down the door, confirming the lock was engaged. There were no signs of forced entry from the balcony, and the snow on that balcony appeared undisturbed. Police argued that no one else could have been in the apartment when Ellen died. Under this pressure from law enforcement, Dr. Osborne made a decision he would come to regret. On April 11, 2011, he officially changed Ellen Greenberg's manner of death from homicide to suicide. Josh and Sandy Greenberg learned about this reversal not from official channels, but from media reports. Their daughter's killer investigation had been shut down without explanation. Ellen's death certificate would forever read suicide. The Greenbergs refused to accept it. In the weeks and months following Ellen's death, Josh and Sandy Greenberg began their own investigation. What they uncovered was a cascade of inconsistencies, procedural failures, and evidence that seemed to contradict the official suicide ruling at every turn. First, there was the matter of the swing bar latch and the security guard. Police had told Dr. Osborne that building security had been present when Sam broke down the door, confirming it had been latched from inside. This detail became crucial to the suicide determination. If Ellen had been alone with the door secured from within, how could anyone else have harmed her? But surveillance footage told a different story. The video clearly showed Sam Goldberg alone in the hallway outside apartment 603. Building doorman Phil Hansen later signed a sworn declaration stating unequivocally that he had not accompanied Goldberg to the 6th floor and was not present when the door was broken down. The fundamental premise upon which the suicide ruling rested was demonstrably false. More troubling still, an analysis of the swing bar latch itself revealed it could be manipulated from outside. The apartment security experts demonstrated that such locks could be engaged by someone exiting, then pulling the door closed in a specific way. The locked door proved nothing. Then, there was the 911 call itself. Linguistic experts and investigators who reviewed the recording found it deeply problematic. Sam Goldberg's initial description of Ellen's condition evolved dramatically during the call. He first suggested she had fallen or hit her head. Only after more than 2 minutes did he mention the knife protruding from her chest. For someone who had just broken down a door and discovered his fiancée covered in blood, this seemed like a staggering detail to overlook. The Greenbergs hired their own forensic experts to review the evidence. The findings were damning. Dr. Cyril Vecht, a renowned forensic pathologist, concluded that Ellen's death was strongly suspicious of homicide. He noted the impossibility of self-inflicting wounds to the back of the head and neck, particularly with the force necessary to penetrate the spinal cord. Other experts examined the blood spatter patterns and concluded they were inconsistent with self-infliction. The position of Ellen's body, propped against the cabinets, raised questions about how she could have stabbed herself repeatedly and then arranged herself in that particular position. Perhaps most disturbing was evidence that some wounds appeared to have been inflicted after Ellen's heart had stopped beating. Dr. Lindsay Emery, a neuropathologist who examined samples from Ellen's cervical spine, found evidence suggesting at least one wound to the neck showed no active hemorrhaging, indicating Ellen may have already been dead when that injury occurred. If she was already dead, she obviously couldn't have stabbed herself. The bruises on Ellen's body told yet another story. 11 contusions in various stages of healing suggested a pattern of abuse over time. Some were fresh from the day she died. Others were days or weeks old. Outside pathologists examining photographs described the pattern as consistent with repeated beating. Ellen's psychiatrist's notes became another crucial piece of evidence. While the suicide ruling emphasized Ellen's anxiety and work stress, the detailed session notes painted a different picture. Yes, Ellen had been anxious about her job and wedding planning, but she showed no suicidal ideation. In fact, the notes specifically mentioned that Ellen's demeanor would brighten considerably when discussing Sam or her upcoming marriage. These were not the observations of someone planning to take her own life. As the Greenbergs dug deeper, they uncovered what appeared to be a systematic failure to properly investigate Ellen's death from the very beginning. The crime scene had been catastrophically compromised. On the night of January 26th, responding officers made the decision that Ellen's death was a suicide and left the scene after the medical examiner's investigators departed. They didn't secure the apartment as a potential crime scene. They didn't preserve evidence. They didn't process the scene for fingerprints or DNA beyond the most cursory examination. But the real controversy began the next morning. On January 27th, building property manager Melissa Ware received a phone call from a male relative of Samuel Goldberg requesting access to apartment 603 to retrieve personal items for the funeral. Ware contacted the Philadelphia Police Department to confirm there were no restrictions on entering the apartment. The police gave permission. That same morning, Sam's uncle, James Schwartzman, entered the apartment. This wasn't just any uncle. James Schwartzman was the chairman of the Pennsylvania Judicial Conduct Board, one of the most powerful legal figures in the state. He removed Ellen's iPhone, her personal laptop, her work laptop, and Sam's laptop from the apartment. The chain of custody for these critical pieces of evidence was irrevocably broken. Even more troubling, Ware was advised by police to hire a crime scene cleanup crew. By the time Philadelphia homicide detectives obtained a search warrant to properly process the apartment on January 28th, 2 days after Ellen's death, the scene had been thoroughly cleaned and sanitized. Blood evidence was gone. Any trace DNA was destroyed. The apartment had been restored to its pre-death condition. When detectives finally demanded the electronic devices from Schwartzman, they received them on January 29th. But the devices had been in the possession of Sam Goldberg's family for 48 critical hours, plenty of time for any incriminating evidence to be reviewed or deleted. Then there was Dr. Marlon Osborne himself. The Greenbergs discovered that Osborne had a troubled history at the medical examiner's office. In 2012, his supervisor had written multiple memos citing errors and discrepancies in Osborne's work, some described as very severe with potentially grave consequences. This was the pathologist whose judgment on Ellen's death had been trusted implicitly, whose change from homicide to suicide had closed the investigation. Josh and Sandy Greenberg refused to let their daughter's case die in obscurity. In October 2019, they filed a civil lawsuit against the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office and Dr. Marlon Osborne, seeking to change Ellen's manner of death to homicide or undetermined. The lawsuit forced the release of thousands of pages of documents, autopsy photographs, police reports, and internal communications that had been hidden from public view for years. The evidence was shocking. In 2018, Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro took over the case from Philadelphia authorities. For years, the Greenbergs provided Shapiro's office with mountains of new evidence, over 10 gigabytes of data, including detailed forensic files, 3D analyses of each of the 20 stab wounds, and lengthy depositions from medical examiner officials. The family waited for action. In 2019, Shapiro's office announced they were closing the investigation citing the computer searches allegedly showing suicidal ideation. The Greenbergs were devastated. Then in 2022, internet sleuths made a stunning discovery. Attorney General Shapiro had personal connections to both Sam Goldberg's family and to James Schwartzman. The appearance of conflict of interest was undeniable. Under mounting public pressure, Shapiro's office transferred the case to the Chester County District Attorney's Office. The Chester County DA reviewed the case and announced in November 2024 that they could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a crime had been committed. The investigation was declared inactive. Sam was never named as a suspect. He was never charged with any crime. He cooperated with initial police questioning, though the investigation was so cursory that meaningful interrogation never occurred. By 2014, just 3 years after Ellen's death, Sam married Caroline Schnee in a lavish ceremony at the Plaza Hotel in New York City. The couple now has children and lives a quiet life. Sam works as a freelance senior producer. He has never publicly addressed the growing chorus of voices demanding answers about what really happened to Ellen Greenberg. For 13 years, Dr. Marlon Osborne stood by his amended ruling that Ellen Greenberg had killed herself. Then, in February 2025, something extraordinary happened. As part of a settlement in the Greenberg family's lawsuit, Dr. Osborne filed a sworn statement that sent shockwaves through the true crime community after reviewing additional information that had come to light over the years. Osborne stated it was now his professional opinion that Ellen's manner of death should be designated as something other than suicide. Following Osborne's stunning reversal, the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office agreed to re-examine the case as part of the settlement, but in October 2025, those hopes were dashed. Philadelphia's chief medical examiner issued a comprehensive review of the case, and the official ruling remained the same: suicide. But the questions have only multiplied. How does a person stab themselves 10 times in the back of the head and neck? How does someone penetrate their own spinal cord with enough force to sever it? Why were there 11 bruises in various stages of healing on Ellen's body? If Ellen was suicidal, why did she fill her gas tank for the coming days? Why was she planning meals, looking at wedding websites, and texting friends normally? Somewhere in Philadelphia, someone knows what really happened in apartment 603 on January 26, 2011. Someone knows why a vibrant 27-year-old teacher with her whole life ahead of her ended up on a kitchen floor with 20 stab wounds and a knife in her heart. Until that truth comes to light, Ellen Greenberg's death will remain what it has always been: a mystery that defies explanation, a ruling that defies logic, and a tragedy that demands answers.